Coach Brian Kelly of LSU after what could only be described as a disappointing Saturday night in College Station. Coach, where would be a good place to begin? I know how disappointed you and your entire program has to be.
Well, I mean, certainly, anytime you're up double digits at halftime and don't come up with a victory, it's disappointing, but you have to look at the reasons for that. And, it's pretty obvious we weren't able to, handle the new quarterback that came into the game. We did such a terrific job defensively. We drove out their starting quarterback and they brought in their second quarterback, and we weren't able to adjust accordingly in the second half to slow down their offense. And then offensively, it's pretty obviously the turnovers were obviously key in the game. And so, look, the game is 4 quarters. We've been on the other side of that. We talked about the Mississippi game where, they couldn't believe they didn't win that game, and we closed that game out. This is a very similar tale here where we're ahead of, for 70% of the game. We're leading with about 5 minutes to go in the third quarter, and we inexplicably snapped the ball prior to it being called for on a field goal attempt to go up by 6 points. So, miscues in the second half, the inability to close it out, certainly disappointing. Our team was prepared. They came in ready to play and played a great first half, but it's not a half game. It's 4 quarters.
Coach, and I'm sure that you have to have an answer for everything when you're the head coach, and we've talked about the comeback against South Carolina and against Ole Miss. When these things start happening, it's easy to sit there on your couch like I was watching, going, well, you need to do this or that. But what is that like in the moment when you feel the momentum slipping away, you're on the road, tough place, you can't stop time, can you?
Yeah. Well, you can feel it, certainly. So you have to have the emotional flexibility as a player and as a coach to change with what's going on at the time. You can't be stuck in 20 minutes ago or 45 minutes ago. So you've got to be able to adjust to what's going on. And what really needed to happen was we needed to execute defensively differently, right? We're now having to handle option responsibilities. We weren't doing that. We were rushing the quarterback. We were in much more of a traditional defensive structure. And then on offense, we needed to control the football. We couldn't go 3 and out because clearly we were trying to make some adjustments on defense, and we didn't play complementary football. And then certainly, as you know, as I mentioned, we weren't doing it in special teams. So what you're looking for in that period of time really is somebody to take hold of the game back. And, we kind of did. We got to 28-23, and now we've got at least an opportunity to come up with a defensive stop because offensively, I thought we got our bearings back, but we weren't able to get that big stop that we needed on defense.
You always hear, well, you don't, but I do. You hear commentators always saying, well, they'll go in at halftime and make adjustments. Well, but when it happens the way it did for you, how do you adjust in real time to a different player, one that is completely different than, as you said, the guy you essentially ran out of the game?
Yeah, so it's third quarter, about 6 minutes, 6 minutes and 56 seconds. I mean, we got to make some adjustments on the sideline. Now, some of the things are, hey, this is what we did last week against Arkansas, athletic quarterback in green, a guy that can run. Remember these things that we did last week? Well, we're going to have to install these things and be ready for them. And, obviously we didn't execute those things from last week's game plan into this game plan. And those are things that we have to look at as coaches. Like, did we spend enough time on the backup quarterback coming in and into this game? And certainly, those are the things that you have to take a good close look at and make sure that you don't have these situations again.
Yeah, and Coach, I'm not saying anything you don't already know, but I mean, we'd seen Marcel Reed before. He played against Florida in a couple other games, so he wasn't a complete mystery. And sometimes you are caught off guard. But in terms of on the defensive side of the ball, I realize you lost the game, but what do you take away from that maybe prevents that from happening the next time?
Well, again, I think you have to be prepared for, a guy that could be in the game. I mean, like he wasn't, like you said, Paul, he wasn't, way down on the roster. I mean, he had played a lot of football. So, we can't be surprised if, a quarterback that is a running quarterback comes into the game. And certainly we have that situation right now with a couple of our quarterbacks that are running quarterbacks. So you have to be prepared in those situations. And certainly we play defense well enough that we can muster, the assignments, and we just didn't execute our assignments. We try. Look, I'll tell you what it comes down to really is, when you get into these moments of adversity, right, you become distracted and you start to do somebody else's job instead of what we have been doing is our own job. And those things happen. And I hope, I think it's a learning, moment for everybody, that you have to stay focused on doing your job. And, the moment that those things happen, bad things occur. And that's what happened defensively.
Yeah, and I know that shouldn't affect what happens offensively, but certainly Nussmeier went from it was a completely different fourth quarter for him as well. From your view, what did you learn about that, and what can be corrected for the next game, which is going to be fairly important?
Oh yeah, I'd say so. We have no margin for error now. I mean, I think, look, this comes back to fundamentals and coaching of the quarterback and being disciplined and doing the things necessary. And that zero is an okay play, but not turning it over. And so that goes back to the coaching, the teaching, the discipline of the position. You want the kind of balance necessary where he doesn't have to be throwing it, 45 times a game.
Certainly, both you and Alabama are off this week, and I know there'll be plenty of obsessing over that game next week. But just a quick thought, considering it is now one of the most important football games of the year in college football, and certainly the most important game for both programs this year.
No doubt. I mean, look, we understand, the things that we have to work on and be better at, on both sides of the ball and in special teams. The version that I believe is going to play is the version that came out physically and mentally prepared to play A&M, that was up by double digits in a very difficult place to play. And we need to build on that. That's the version of LSU that needs to play against Alabama, but he needs to do it for 4 quarters. So we'll go back to work on this bye week. We'll work on those things that gives us the opportunity to play that kind of football, not for 70% of the game, but for 100% of the game.
I realize fans obsess over things like this, but right before we came on, it was announced it would be a night game in Tiger Stadium, which I know fans love. As a coach, I know you don't want those early games in the heat of September, but this time of the year, what are your thoughts on what time the game starts?
I don't give it much thought, to be honest with you, other than what you mentioned, Paul, earlier, is that I'm not crazy about playing, early games in the heat of September. But these games right now, they take care of themselves, whether you play them at noon or 2 or 3 or 6 or 7. It really, for me, right now, we're so far along in the season. The teams take care of it. They take care of what these games should look like in terms of how they're played, the action on the field, and really the outcomes. So the time is immaterial to me at this point.
Final thought, and I know you couldn't have missed it yesterday or today because it's been shown 8 million times on every network in the world, and that's what happened yesterday in Washington with Jaden Daniels.
My thoughts were, let's just get it to the end zone.
Well, it has certainly been quite a day for Jaden Daniels. And, Coach, we always appreciate no matter what happened on the previous Saturday, for you to show up here and be helpful to all of us. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me on.